today we got to play City Builder, an ancient world. Now, we did find this at Origins, and this is what happened. So before I get into the story, though, don't forget to subscribe button and the notification bell, because otherwise I'd forget. Anyway, so City Builder, Ancient World. So we saw this at a booth, and I should like Carcassonne. I should. And when they said, oh, this is an advanced version of Carcassonne, I was a little wish-washy on it. I heard the gameplay and I was like, okay, if this is Carcassonne on steroids, I might be able to enjoy it. So we ended up picking it up.
Yeah, well, we were waiting to meet up with
Lucky
Duck Games, and you were killing time by shopping and buying this game.
That was one of the things I was doing, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Then we also found out about Earth at the same time. So I'm looking forward to that Kickstarter. All right, so let's then talk about the stuff that you have for us. I know it's from Inside Up Games. Because it's on the box.
It's degraded to that now. It's just, let's talk about that stuff you do.
No, normally I lead in, but normally I don't tell a story before I lead in, and so I'm off kilter, guys. Forgive me. So it's by Inside Up Games.
Yes, it's a 2021 release. Board Game Geek.
It was a Kickstarter.
Yes.
It says thank you to all the Kickstarters back here. So the first shout out is to...
We're not going to read through all the names. Let me get through my part. Board Game Geek rating is 7.1. Board Game Geek rank is 65.98. It's a 1 to 4 player game. The average length is 30 to 60 minutes. Age recommendation is 8 and up. That might be a little low for me just because they're going to have trouble recognizing some of the icons.
It's not the gameplay that makes it an issue.
It's the art.
And it's not even that it's art that's inappropriate. It's just hard to distinguish. Yeah. And when the symbology is not good when you're dealing with a younger audience, it tends to be a little bit prohibited. So
designed by Andre Philippe, art by Andrew Dorland, and it's published by Inside Up Games. As you mentioned, it's a Kickstarter. It was $55 on Kickstarter. The game is on Inside Up's website for $59. Amazon has it listed for $47.49, but I don't know if you'll get all of the upgrades as part of the Kickstarter. And it's also being sold on the Geek Market by someone for $25, but apart from those sources, I didn't see it anywhere online.
Yeah. All right. So now let's talk about the quality of components. So you do have tiles. So in that essence, very similar.
Similar to Carcassonne.
Similar to Carcassonne.
They don't really have a linen finish or anything. I think Carcassonne's actually do.
Oh, okay. But they are pretty good thickness. They're several layers worth, but you can see the layers when you look at it. But and then you do end up with these house-shaped meeples. You have both small and large.
I guess they are kind of house. Thought they were supposed to be nobles, but I guess it's the nobles' houses.
Yes.
And commoners.
Yeah, it's where they live. You're putting their houses down, not them themselves. And then you also do have inlaid boards for the...
if you want to call them that. They didn't function real well.
I thought they were fine.
The things kept falling over when I was trying to load them.
Oh, I think that was a user error?
I think it's just that they weren't deep enough, that the buildings are very easy to knock over.
The small ones I have no problem.
Yeah, the small ones weren't as problematic, although getting them to line up and go into the slots was harder on the small ones than the big ones. The big ones didn't want to fit nicely into the slots in the middle, and then when one fell, it would knock over something else, and you had this domino effect going on.
I think it may have been a user
error. There is a metal coin for the first player in the Kickstarter edition, but they have a cardboard token for the non-Kickstarter version.
Yeah, it's super shiny. There's these on one side.
Yeah.
And then there's, I'm going to assume this is Hera.
Yeah, it looks more plastic than metal, but it actually is
because
metal.
the super shiny, that's what I was like. I was like, that's metal, and it's because it's the super shiny gold that doesn't have that antique finish which you typically see in metal. But overall quality of components, I think slightly better than Carcassonne just because you got houses instead of meeples, but not by much. So I'm probably going to give this, because I put Catan and Carcassonne kind of on the same level as far as quality of components. So I would probably put this 5.5, maybe a 6. What are you thinking?
Yeah, probably 5.5. If everything were as nice as like having the metal and the wood, I'd probably go 6. But with the problematic inlaid boards, the fact that there is no linen finish on the tiles, I don't think it quite qualifies.
Yeah, there's some stuff that they could have added, and I'm sure maybe if the Kickstarter was bigger, they would have done that.
Yeah.
But
Now the insert was nice. Everything had a place on the insert. Maybe I'll give it a 6 because of the insert. But the problem with the insert was it didn't tell you where anything was supposed to go in it, so you had to assume where things went.
Yes, you had to guess. Okay. So yeah, I think 6. Now with the insert, including that, definitely a 6. All right, so now let's take it to the theme. So the theme obviously is City Builder. Do the name. Check that out. But it is a Roman city, right?
Well, it's
like,
ancient world, but yes, there's
Colosseum. You got a Colosseum. So. Actually, that's the Paris Arch.
Yeah.
Then you have, but this is like a famous temple.
Arc de Triomphe. Well, there's arches. That's Roman. It's all over Europe, the arches.
Oh, it's just the more famous ones in France.
Well, that's where one of them is, yes.
Okay. So I do think, what's the blue though?
Building.
Yeah, but it doesn't look very...
Doesn't look Roman. It has a little pointy tower on it.
Yeah, I don't know what that one is. Guys, if you know what this blue building is, I'm down. Randy will show a picture of it. Check it out.
You presume a lot.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I assume you have magic. Okay. But overall, so you're building this, and then as you build districts, which are based on where the roads are located, you can either place victory point tiles or detriment to other people's, just depending on what is available. They switch out. You have 3 at any given time. Or you end up finishing a district and able to place settlers on that district. And settlers, I mean houses, which I don't know why they didn't say houses instead of settlers, whatever, based on the units that you have available. So overall theme is you're doing a city build. It's not heavy in theme. It's really not heavy in theme. There's some things, it's light on theme.
Yes.
I'm going to go with 5.5 on theme.
Well, I think more importantly, the art on this is actually detrimental to the gameplay. It's very difficult just to see the differences between where the roads and things end. But on top of that, the buildings are so small that, when you're looking at it, and they kind of blend into the background. So it's hard to see. On top of that, the tiles have background art that makes the text on them hard to read when you're looking at these bonus tiles. And whenever you're trying to decipher everything, and the score pad even, they put art on the background of the score pad that made it very difficult to read or write on. It
seems they lost a little bit of functionality with the busy art. Like, it's very realistic. It's fine as far as quality goes. It's not great. It's fine. But I think they did end up losing some of that functionality. And like we sort of brushed on the fact of that age, it was... Listen, I didn't have an issue with it, but the 2 old guys that we were playing with, my father and Randy over here, they did have quite a bit of difficulty. And even me, no, I didn't have an issue. I'm not going to lie. But I do say it is busy. And sometimes, I will say there was one tile that I didn't like because there was a lake instead of a road.
Mm-hmm.
And it still is one section, but that lake really threw me off because you don't see that anywhere else.
I've got a few tiles that had lakes on them, but yeah.
Well, it's the same.
Tiles.
It's the same shape.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's this one here. It's the same shape.
Mm-hmm.
That one threw me a loop, but other than that, I didn't really have any issues.
But yeah, it's definitely a layered on theme. It's a territory building and closing off areas similar to Carcassonne cities.
Yeah, but you're playing your own individual map instead of a united front like you do in Cook. Well, we're getting kind of a little bit in gameplay. Overall, theme though, I do think they lost a little bit on the art. They lost a little bit of the functionality for the art. I didn't have a huge problem with it, but if you got bad eyes, that's going to be a little bit of a pain. Overall though, for theme, I'm probably going to give this 5.5. There just wasn't a lot to it. No,
yeah, I think 5.5 is fair. It may be even high for it because, like I said, the art is a detriment to me. So,
I mean, but the artwork in itself is fine.
Yeah,
it's just you ended up losing functionality, and So I don't want to penalize it too much because it's not like the art's horrible, but it's not great either.
Well, but when you're building your cities, you really need it to be a very clear delineator, and it's harder to make out than it should be.
Well, okay, I'm not gonna lie. The biggest thing is when and this is the thing, they did super detailed work. All these little squares, but those squares, there's a slight color variation between the cobble tile.
Yeah.
And if they had done something different, like gardens or whatever, to segregate it, it would have been a lot easier to tell from the cobblestone. But because these bricks, they're almost like roof laying, kind of like a terracotta roof laying, that hindered because, like, especially with the yellow really blends in. That was the mistake. Those terracotta tiles, which I don't think they're even that. I think they are just buildings.
Yeah, I think they're supposed to be little buildings.
Whatever that is, that I think is the problem.
Yeah, I agree. Well, I mean, that and the cobblestone being so close. Either one, you could have made the cobblestone more white and differentiated it more clearly, too.
Well, I like the color variation of the cobblestone. I think it looks great. Honestly, I think those the terracotta roof things are actually kind of ugly. No, not kind of, they're just very plain and they detracted. So that could have went and we would have been fine. And I don't think we would have noticed so much the other stuff if that was the case. Because, like, this is clear, that's fine. Yeah. This is when they should have maybe paid a little more attention to.
I think they should have faded the background and just left the icon. You could have had just a solid background on them and not worried about that.
Well, I mean, I get they're wanting the tiles to be pretty.
Well, they have that on the other side. You could have just kept it on the other side.
Yeah.
You don't need that side. I mean, it just makes it more difficult to read. That's all it does.
Yeah, you have the cool side on the back.
Yeah.
Okay, I agree. Oh, because you can then flip this over and get the cool thing.
Well, yeah, but then you'll not be able to reference it easily on your board if you flip it over.
Well, but if you already know what it is.
Yeah.
No, that's fine. But again, theme 5.5.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so now let's move on to the rule book. You read it.
Yep.
I didn't.
So
what was it like?
Rulebook's 8 pages long, but it's a lot of text. There's no cover; it just goes straight into the contents, and then you've got the setup. There's 2 ways to play the game: competitively and cooperatively. So they go through the explanation first on the competitive setup and gameplay, which is what we played. Then they go through the cooperative afterward. Co-op, they only actually go through a page and a half on that. And then solo is like just a blurb on the back, so it doesn't look like it's
not gonna lie, this has
out.
No appeal to play co-op for me.
No, it's a completely different set of tiles you use, and there's different features, but it's definitely we're not big co-op fans in general. Sometimes
you're not. If it's a good one, I can get behind, but a tiling game being co-op, I don't know.
Yeah. It's, so the rulebook's fine. It's just very busy. It's very cluttered. The print is...
it's seeming like that's their aesthetic.
Yeah. It's definitely, I mean, I'm sure you could see how busy of words it is. It's just lots of words crammed into the pages.
A lot of picture, a lot of
Yeah, the pictures aren't really... You're so surrounded with text that the picture kind of just fades out. But yeah, they're there. And they are labeled well. I'll go ahead and probably give this a 6.5. I think it's a fine rulebook. It does its job. It took me a couple reads as I was going through just to make sure I understood the concepts. It wasn't clear on the first read. The examples did help, but it's just really busy.
Yeah. All right, so let's talk about the actual gameplay. So on your turn, you basically have 3 tiles that you can choose from at any given time, okay? So as you play tiles, all right, you're going to place one, and then you're going to determine whether you closed out a particular area. If you didn't, no, it is this. If you didn't close out a particular area, then you're not going to take any actions. But eventually, then I'm going to draw another card. But eventually, I'm going to end up closing out a action. Okay, so then I'm going to determine what I have in this district. Now, this is actually a huge freaking district. So then I'm going to go for it. So I do have 2 greens and a district and one of a random. So I get to place a big building. So if you'll notice here on the edge here, so each player is working from their side of the board.
Yeah, it's got elements of between two cities in that front where you're both sharing a common area between you that you're working.
But you're trying to beat them.
But yeah, this is more like a tug of war between you.
Yes, I like that phrasing, tug of war. So you're trying to get yours off the board faster because if you can get further along the track, you get more victory points. So that's kind of helpful.
And it's also kind of 3 tracks because you've got the middle one is worth more points. It's a little harder to get them. And then you have 2 sidebars. Now, the problem is these are randomly distributed at the beginning of the game.
Yeah, so you don't know what you're going to end up getting.
I ran into a situation where I had a bunch of red on one side, and I had no red tiles like the entire game. So there wasn't any way of me getting rid of them, which was an advantage for you on that.
Yeah. All right, so we're going to look at this, and we're going to see that... okay, so now in this case, so I have a red coming up. So I have a red and something else, pretty much all of it. So I get to place a little red meeple. I do have 2 green.
You have to have a white roofed house in order to place any kind of
correct
thing in there.
So not only do you have to have the landmark, you have to have a white roof tile. Okay, so now, because I placed in a red or green, I cannot place any more red or green in my territory, even though it's freaking humongous, okay? So then I also have a blue, and I don't think this is what I originally had. Because at the time...
But you do not have any yellow.
I think I used to have yellow at some
Well,
point.
you don't now, so you can't place that one.
But... because I don't have that one, I can't play any of that. Okay, so those are the thing. Even though I have tons of other houses, because I can only play with one color, not only can I only play one of that color, I also have to have it available to play. Okay, so now the other option is for me to not play this right now. I could just finish the district, put everything big in its order, and then I could choose, I'm going to wait until I have that ability to fill it, because maybe I've planned everything for these next couple.
Yeah, you don't have to fill immediately. You have the option of waiting and doing it whenever during the course of the game. You can backfill any of them, but if you put something in it, you can no longer do that.
Yeah, I think that's what I had.
Yeah.
But anyway, so that's how that works. And again, everyone goes around, they place a tile, they pick up a tile, and they play these when they can.
You do have the option when you go to draw your tile, you can discard any number of the 2 tiles you already still have in your hand to draw back up to 3. So if you do have a situation like I had where I had no red, I can discard my whole hand, which I took advantage of several times. Still didn't get any red, but you can redraw.
Okay. Now, if you make the exact shape of one of these units here, you can choose to take one from the middle and place it and get that special ability.
You have to have the criteria of the tile met in that region.
It has to be the same shape and have the criteria. So for this particular instance, it has to have a red and a blue. So that one actually doesn't. It has a red and a green. So I can't, neither one of those. Okay, but this one does, for example. This one, I needed 2 wilds. This one does have 2 wilds, so I'm able to place it on here just like so. And then now if anyone has one of those, opponents loses 3 VP per statue in their completed areas. Now most of these are dictated by victory points, either subtracting from other people or adding to yours. That's how you won the game, Brandy, and I do not appreciate that.
Yeah, and that was actually one of my grievances with the game, is that's how I won the game, because it seemed like some of these tiles are way more powerful.
I think some of them should have had a max point.
Yeah, I think they needed to do something, because mine, I got 3 points for every differently shaped region I had, and I had a ton of differently shaped regions because of that, and I got a ton of points.
Yeah, versus me, I think I played my board the best. I did get the most off of the tracks, but I didn't even compete with you. You significantly won. And so I do think tiles are a big component, and maybe I should have paid attention to them more. I basically only took the negative one because I didn't want that placed on me, because I already had several districts with those wilds on there. So that is something to take in consideration when playing this game, is tiles are important. Now, that being said, with the tiling game, I really hate the fact that the tiles are that important.
Yeah, the bonuses seemed skewed. Some of them seemed very weak, and some of, like the one I had, was very powerful. and determine the game. So I don't like the balance on the tiles. I didn't feel that the tug. I like the tug of war aspect, but I thought the fact that it's randomly distributed and you can get in a situation like I was where you end up with nothing that matches the colors.
Well, but there are wilds available. You could get wilds.
I didn't get any. I got one during the whole course of the game. One.
Oh, well, you slacker.
And I got no reds. I got one red, I think, at the beginning.
In?
I traded them 3 times and got no red on any of the draws.
Well,
so you can get hosed by the fact that you've got reds that were in
Well, I mean, but you have 6 tracks tentatively to work on. So even if you lose one, you can focus on others. So I significantly like the tug of war aspect. Honestly, I like this game played better than Carcassonne. I would like to play it again, knowing that the tiles are important as they are. But I still enjoyed the game.
I enjoyed it. I just don't like it as well as Carcassonne. I mean, I know you and I differ on our opinions of Carcassonne, but I personally like it because Carcassonne has a ton of expansions which vary the game, and I like the play of it a lot better than this. I like the way you do interact in the central board where everybody's shared. Plus, I never like the component where you have stuff between you. It's the same reason I don't like Between Two Cities.
Well, I hate the fact that you always take my stuff in Carcassonne. So maybe I just don't like playing with you with Carcassonne. It may have nothing to do with the game. It may be directly related to, let's see if I can steal all of Miranda's territories. Yes, I can. Let me do it.
Yeah. One thing we should point out on the scoring between the areas, whenever you get down to where there's only one building on one of the 3 paths, you cannot take any more buildings from that because that is kind of the divide between your scoring areas. So your score regions, you've got to leave one building there. So it is truly a tug of war where you try to get that building to the other end as fast as you can so you can score more points than your opponent.
Yeah. Now, why don't you like in between? Because I enjoy that mechanism.
I don't know.
Because it gives a little bit of animosity without you going against the whole table. Just a little bit of attack.
I think the weird thing is I think every one of the games we play that has had different reasons why I didn't like it. There's like Between Two Cities. I don't like it because we've ended in ties. I don't know how many times because it's basically you're co-oping.
I think it's maybe you just don't like sitting next to me and sharing something.
Well, that's true too. But then we've also had the one with the Planet Unknown where we had some serious problems with the tiles that were between you. I
was fine with that.
Yeah, where your board interaction can have a huge effect on that scoring. And that was a problem. And then this one, I like the idea of it a lot better. But when it's randomly distributed and you get randomly distributed tiles and you end up with scenarios like I got where I couldn't play for a long time on your board because I had nothing but red on that side.
And I was okay with it.
Yeah.
But then you got a huge amount on.
I got more on your
exactly, and that's how that works. I mean, I feel like that's part of the gameplay is you have plenty of other options to go even if yours isn't quite. I'm fine with it. It's part of randomness. There is just a little bit of guess what? It's a game, and there's some random component to it.
So,
and I understand where sometimes that too much randomness is not good, but I think in this one's fine. Giving it a score, what would you give it?
I'm probably about a 5.5.
Oh, and would you play it again?
I played it again. I don't like it as well as Carcassonne.
Okay, I'm different. I don't like it as well as Carcassonne. Or I do the reverse. I don't like Carcassonne as much, is what I should say. I do like the tug of war. I like that I'm playing on my own board and no one can steal heifer. And no one can steal from me. But there is still a little bit of tension over here. So for me, I'll probably give this a 6. So
we're not that different. I thought you were going to go like a 7 or an 8.
But our score of Carcassonne's probably different than.
Oh yes, I'm sure. Carcassonne's probably 7 or better for me.
And no, for mine's you, barely a 5. So, so I think that's probably where we're kind of at. So, all right, guys. Well, thank you so much for joining us. We had an absolute blast hanging out with you guys tonight. Hopefully, you'll come hang out with us again. Bye.